Hi everybody, this is Raw5069 with Take the Red Pill. I received a response, I guess, to something I posted, the last video I posted. And the response was from an individual called Raw5069. Now, I want to address some of the things that he said. Now, this person said that I'm desperately trying to get attention. Well, here's the funny thing about it. When I first started the videos, I remember this individual, Raw5069, asked me and said, what is my intention? What is my goal in all this? And I remember specifically stating that I have no goal in this. This is just something that I'm putting out there just to see what people's feel are for things. You know, what do they think about certain religious dogmas and whether, you know, there is any validity to them. And so my purpose or goal is not to prove or disprove that there is God, because quite frankly, I already know that there's not sufficient evidence to prove that there is God. And so, and nor can I say there is sufficient evidence either to disprove that there is a God. So either one of those, points are kind of moot to me. The thing is it true or is it not true? You know, Raw5069 turned around and said that, you know, I'm confused and I'm lost. Here's the funny thing. I've heard a lot of theists make the same claim, saying that, you know, you're lost and you're confused when you do not agree with what is it that they believe in. Well, here's the thing. I think I've stated it before. Faith is believing something without evidence. And so most of our life, we do not go around believing things without evidence. Religion is the only thing that seems to be the exception to that rule, and it shouldn't be. If you're going to believe something, you should believe it with evidence. If you decide you're going to believe things without evidence, then it should be for every aspect of your life. In which case, to me, you may be blowing whichever direction the wind blows. Is that a prudent thing? Not in my opinion. But again, I'm just stating my opinion. He also said that if I pick apart his video, just like I did with somebody else, that he would not be responding to me. Or, you know, he wouldn't further answer any of my questions. Well, here's the other thing that's a little funny about that. Not once did I ever directly message him and said, hey, here's a question I have, can you answer it? I never did that. All I ever did was posted a video and he came around and gave his input. I responded on a few of the things, and that's it. So I generally don't go around seeking people's input in that manner and say, well, what do you think about this? Because I already have my own opinions, and I already see things for what they are a lot of times. However, I'm not going to claim that I'm perfect and that everything I look at is perfectly correct, in my view. And so that is one of the reasons why I like to engage people on certain topics, to see what is it that they think, and to see if maybe I may be missing something, or if maybe I haven't looked at or thought about something in a certain manner. But I don't go around precisely soliciting people's opinion on things. That is not me. You know, one thing that he did put out there is that I spoke about the Amalekites and how they, you know, kill children, you know, and how they kill children and sacrifice them and things of that nature. And he claimed and said that, the Hebrews, they failed. They didn't they didn't kill, everybody when God told them to go in there and do so. My thing is this: it doesn't make a difference whether they failed at their mission or they succeeded at it. That's irrelevant. Let me give a simple example. I was in the military for a long time, and I know good and well if in a war, I don't care if it's a war zone, if my commander turned around and told me, or the person in charge told me, to go ahead and kill a child down the road who I saw to be maybe 3 years old, I would have said no. Now, there is something about military law to where if you disobey an order in a war zone, the commanding officer can turn around and take the gun and take you out. I would probably feel more comfortable with that than actually knowing that I just went ahead and slew a 3-year-old for no apparent reason, because I know a 3-year-old can be taught certain things and be retrained. So again, he used that as, I guess, his springboard to for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure yet, but it's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, God gave the command to kill children. Now, here's the funny thing. He also said that I'm using that as my excuse, or whatever the case is, for not believing in God. That is far from the truth. Way, way far from the truth. Because the thing is, there are many other atrocities that God committed. And it's not about the atrocities that God committed, which is why I don't believe in God. Far from it. The thing is, the whole concept of God and, you know, the supernatural being who is omnipotent. Wow, can barely talk. Who's omnipotent, omnibenevolent, and all of this supposedly good stuff. It's like, where's the proof of this individual? That's just the bottom line. That's exactly what it boils down to. It has nothing to do with whether he or she or it has done, you know, committed atrocity or is evil or whatever the case is. That's irrelevant. Because, see, in order for me to believe that this individual did commit these atrocities, I would have to first believe that he or she, it, actually does exist. And so that is the first question that needs to come to mind. Where's the proof on that? And again, I have not seen, there is not sufficient evidence to date that there is such a deity or a creature, whatever you want to call it. So, you know, the atrocities of that God committed, I mean, it's in the Bible. You know, anybody can read it, pick up the book and read it, and you'll see certain things that he did. You know, had children, infants killed, wiped out, you know, a whole slew of people, pretty much, according to the story of Noah, wiped out the whole earth except for 8 people because he didn't like what they were doing. And, you know, I mean, can we fairly say that every single person on the earth was evil and doing wrong except for those 8 select people? Come on. So, you know, there's some holes, you know, in the stories, in the fables that's in the Bible that, you know, if somebody was to look at them in a, I don't know, in a logical manner, I guess, or with reason, you know, the questions would come to mind, definitely. So, here's another thing that he also, Raw5069 also stated was that I insinuate that God is not all-knowing and the Bible is full of errors. Well, here's the thing. I ask questions. That's what I always started off with. And what I was asking things of, if he really is all-knowing, why did he allow things like this to happen when he knew they were going to happen, or he knew the outcome of them? I mean, it's just kind of logic 101. If I knew that somebody was about to get hit by a car because they're walking across the street with their earphones in their ears and they were not paying attention, if I knew it was going to happen, if I saw it coming, if I was that all-knowing, I would, and that person was close by, where I can go and save that individual's life, I would yank that person back from the street and tell them to take their ears off, just so they can see the car go by and say, hey, look, this is what almost happened to you. I mean, that's just, to me, that's just common human decency to do something like that. And so if he knew the Amalekites were going to sacrifice the children and infants, you know, torture them and all this other stuff, an all-knowing individual should have used his or her powers or its powers to stop it from happening in the first place. One would think. And so again, like I said, these are questions that I'm asking. So I did not insinuate that God is not all-knowing because, again, first of all, I have no proof that there is a God that exists to say that one is all-knowing. However, one thing I can say that I would insinuate and have said before is the Bible is full of errors. And that it is. I mean, I can easily open up that book and show you different contradiction and different things that just don't make sense. So, I mean, you want examples? Look at the genealogy of Jesus. 2 different lists. And even you look at the amount of the generations. two different numbers you'll come up with. You know, that's something simple, you know. Here's another simple one. I don't remember exactly which chapter it's in, but in the whole thing of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel that fell, the chapter preceding talks about how there were Shem and his tribes in different languages, and then literally in the last chapter, verse 30, it says the same thing, and then two verses next, which starts the first verse in the second, in the preceding chapter, it talks about there was only one language in the world. It's like, how do you really go within two verses? How do you go from there were many languages to now there was only one? How does that happen? You know, again, there are many other examples that we can come up with, and you know, if anybody, you know, would like to, I don't want to use even the word challenge, but if anyone wants to address those issues with me and tell me why these inaccuracies and these contradictions are not inaccuracies and are not contradictions, I'm definitely all ears. You know, I've never been closed-minded to say, no, too bad, this is what I see, whatever the case is. If someone has a logical explanation for things, I'll be more than happy to hear. You know, another thing that this guy said is that, you know, I'm mocking, you know, my aura. I guess he meant to say, it sounded like he said era, but I'm thinking he meant to say aura, is one of mocking, and all this stuff has been prophesied in the Bible. Well, here's the thing. Anybody can make claims, and anybody can say things. I can turn around right now and say, you know something, I can see that soon, sometime down the road, you're going to enter a green car. Okay? And that can happen years on down end. Did I prophesy that? No. It's just something I put out there, and eventually it can happen. I mean, it doesn't take much for somebody to see how things are going and say, you know something, I see this happen. I mean, let's take a very recent example. I mean, not too recent, but somewhat recent, of Martin Luther King. Okay? His I Have a Dream speech. He said that. He said that, you know, black and whites are going to get along and all this stuff. Guess what? What's happening now? That's exactly what's happening. Was he a prophet? Did he have the gift of prophecy? No. He was just, he said, hey, here's my dream. Here's what I see happening. Because he can see the direction in which things were moving. And so he's like, you know something, eventually it's going to get better. He had hope. But it doesn't mean that he was divinely inspired and that God told him all this. It doesn't prove anything like that. Excuse me. And what's another thing that he said? Oh, he was using, I guess, you know, Israel's back in the land, and, you know, how I get up and put my clothes on. You know, this was all prophesied in the Bible. You know something? I mean, especially with the thing of putting my clothes on in the morning, when I get up, and that I don't walk around naked, that it was prophesied in the Bible. I'm not sure exactly where Raw5069 got that from. The only thing I could surmise, and you know, if I'm wrong, please correct me by all means. You know, this is not a one-way conversation. The only thing I could surmise from that is that maybe he got that from, let's say, the Adam and Eve story, and why now they put clothes on. Well, here's the thing. The people who wrote the books in the Bible, I'm sure they all had clothes. And just because there's some fantasy fairy tale out there of two people who were born without clothes on, walked around, and then eventually they did something wrong in which now they hid themselves, doesn't prove that the prophecy came true and all of a sudden, look, this is the reason why we're wearing clothes. I mean, I would think there would be more substantial information out there than the allegories of these tales that we're hearing. And like I said, again, and I will always state it, if somebody has anything to say about it, you know, any input, I'm all ears. I would love to hear. Here's the one other thing that he did compare that I found a little funny. He turned around and because I was talking about, you know, the atrocities that God committed in the Bible and killing babies. So then he compared that to people having abortions and saying something to effect like, well, it's no different. You know, people, well, excuse me, I'm not sure, he didn't say it's no different. But he compared that to people today, you know, since abortion rights started, that, you know, there's been 55 million babies killed, or over, or whatever he said. He used the number 55 million. Here is the thing. If you want to compare humans to your God and saying, okay, well, they both committed very similar acts, well then, bottom line then, that makes your God no better than humans. So now what? If your God is no better than humans, then what's the point? Why would anybody have a need to worship somebody who's no better than another human being? You know, again, a lot of things that he was saying, it was pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie, it was interesting. One of the things that he also said was that God's judgment on mankind, and, you know, in the end days. Here's the thing. That story about the end days, I mean, my goodness, that story has been around probably since the time of Jesus Christ. You know, people turn around and say, oh yeah, the end time is near and things of that nature. Yeah, okay. Again, where's the proof behind it? Where's the evidence behind this end times that's close by, that's going to take place? You know, and because of that, I'm not saying because of that, but the other funny thing that this individual did say is that he and others met God. Okay, so if truly you met God and others have met God, well, how about you describe what God looked like, who he is? How about you describe some things? I find it kind of ironic that you and a select people met God and so many people, others in the world, have not. I mean, again, here's one thing I've stated before. If God is truly all-knowing and all-powerful, and he knows that there are others out there that doubt his existence, it would be so simple for him to just come down and say, here I am. That, to me, I believe that would solve so many things. That would solve those who don't believe. It would also solve the whole thing with so many different religions out there, because he can just come around and say, look, here's what you guys got to do. Here's the way things are. Here's the way I want you to worship me. That would squash the whole different religions, and even within the religion of Christianity, you got so many different sects in it. And all that stuff would be just irrelevant and non-existent. It would be just one world, one worshiping, everybody on the same page. But like I said, if truly you met God, well, tell me, what are some, what is not, and I don't want to hear characteristics. I want to hear physical attributes. What did you see? That's my question. What did you see? Was it just simply a bright light you saw? Did you see an old man with a big long beard? You know, what was the color of his skin? Just what did you see? And then, what I would like to know is if your story of what you saw matches up with everybody else's. That would be a start. That wouldn't be proof precisely that you saw God, but it would be a start. At least a start to investigation. Anyway, everybody. Hopefully, I can get some feedback on this. It doesn't make a difference, positive or negative or otherwise. But I would like to hear from others as to what they got to say about these subtopics. This is Raw5069 with Take the Red Pill. Until next time, have a nice day.